Hello, I am so happy to be here for Global Conversations Round 5 Behind the Stage. My name is Ellen Fitzgerald. I serve as Communications Manager for Dance Data Project. I am here with our founder and president, Liza Eintema, and have the pleasure to introduce Fiona Findlater, who serves as stage manager for the English National Ballet, and Laura Oliver, who serves as building operations manager at the English National Ballet. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi.
All right. So to kind of kick us off, I would love to just hear from both of you. If you could just explain a little bit about your backgrounds and then talk a little bit to our audience about the roles you were in for English National Ballet, that would be a really great place for us to start.
As already mentioned, I'm the stage manager for English National Ballet. I've been there for about 4 years now. So I suppose my role really is to make sure that shows go off without a hitch. I'll be there from day one in rehearsals all the way through to closing night of the show, and we'll do everything in between. So it's great. My team and I just work to make sure that everything is as good as can possibly be for the dancers on stage, but also for the audience so that they get the best experience possible. I came to this very traditionally, really. I always did theatre growing up. In all manner of what that means. So I was on stage, I performed, but I also did props, and later on I came to assistant stage managing. It wasn't until I was a freshman at college that I took a technical theatre course, and I remember their production stage manager coming to talk to us, and I really remember having this moment of, oh wait, I could do this for a career. And it kind of spiraled from there. I applied to the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, and I got in there, and I went and did the 3-year course, which is very vocational. It's all about the training, and for me that was great because I knew that's what I wanted, and I could really channel all my energy into making that happen. And so from there I got some freelance opportunities, and I've been really lucky to work in different disciplines. So I come from a music background, so ballet was natural, and I've done a lot of opera as well, and a bit of theatre. And yeah, and ultimately it led me to the job at English National Ballet, where 4 years now. So it's been quite a journey.
Although 25% of that, I'm sure, was in the weird category, the space-time bubble continuum thing where you were working, but it must have been very different.
Yeah, I count myself very lucky because I have had a full-time job as a stage manager through all of this, even though we have been on furlough. But you know, the majority of people I know have been unemployed, had contracts cancelled, and yeah, it's been a really hard year for most. So it's been nice to have the support of English National Ballet through this, and yeah, I absolutely am very aware of how fortunate I am to have that.
So I'm building operations manager. So that means I run the building day to day, just keeping everything ticking over, whether that's, rehearsals, whether it's the office and all the staff. In normal times, we be open to the public with a public foyer. We also have lots of external hires and events, and lots of kind of public classes and engagement activity. So I just keep it all kind of ticking over. And my team are a mixture of sort of front of house staff and kind of more engineering kind of staff. And I guess I kind of got into it in a slightly less traditional route. I moved to London to do an English literature degree, decided it wasn't for me, so dropped out and started working for free, as many of us have in this industry, just at small little art centres and kind of community arts projects, to kind of get that first experience and realise I was quite into it. So I then began working at the National Theatre on the South Bank on a lot of their pop-up bars. So in the summer, lots of little container bars and bars in vans and tents and all sorts of different things. One year we had a bar that was made out of bits of set full of props. So it kind of gave me this huge experience in doing a project, doing all the little bits, but on a very small scale. But later on, I've kind of been able to apply to much bigger work. And so that role initially then led me to working in the National's building operations team, kind of getting that groundwork, and then working in the major projects team, and on their NT Future project, which was a big sort of refurb project for theatre. And then actually moved to English National Ballet in 2018, initially as a project manager, because the building that we're now in, that we moved into a couple of years ago, is a brand new sort of purpose-built building. We were in West London in a much smaller, Fiona, you remember it, sort of much smaller, pokier sort of building that really wasn't designed for what we were using it for. So we'd moved into this much bigger building. I worked as a project manager on that, which was fantastic. And then a year ago, or slightly more than a year ago, I became a building operations manager, which has been lovely to kind of caretake the project and then carry on looking after the building. So it's been a nice sort of journey, really. But maybe not where you would normally start off, I suppose.
I saw your in your bio, it's just one time it said logistics, but I mean, it's
all logistics, yeah.
It's all logistics, right?
Yeah.
And it's just
Yeah.
sort of massive future thinking projects down to itty bitty teeny tiny details, right? I mean, it's just like the layers of jobs, and they all need to intersect.
There's a lot of charts and bits of paper and post-it notes everywhere.
And Ellen's going to take it back up, but just so we're clear here, you were getting a BA in English. You don't have an engineering background. You don't have a technical background. You didn't do a plumbing course or an electrician course.
So I guess, yes, you're completely correct. I mean, I love reading, which is why I decided to do English, but it turns out it wasn't for me. Turns out I was much better and much more enjoyed sort of learning on the job. I guess in my role as building operations manager, I don't need to have the expertise of a plumber. I just have to have a good breadth of all knowledge to be able to make the right decisions when advised by specialists, I suppose. So yeah, I've learned a lot in the last,
however, not
10
a
years.
small thing, right?
Yeah.
But you're still the gal going to sub-basement 3 and up in the attic and out to the loading dock, and right? I mean, your remit is everything, right?
Yeah, and I've done various, health and safety and practical building to be safe on a building site courses and all that sort of thing through the years. So yes, it's been a lot, big change. So yeah, it's often me on the roof.
Can you just talk to us a little bit about, what you think is the most important, thing that you have in your stage managing that has allowed you to be successful, and kind of talk through the skill sets that are needed?
I mean, you've touched on a lot of them there, organization and, you use the word logistics a minute ago, Liza. I think it can be applied to stage management, absolutely, and to, the project of the production, if you like. I think for me, the most important thing is that we work with so many different departments. We're probably one of the few teams really that do work with every single department in the building, whether that's the dancers or technical or the orchestra. I did a workshop for engagement a couple of weeks ago, marketing to make sure we've got, interviews with the press and, make sure we've got a room for them in the theatre. And it's knowing how to work with all of those people is what I think is really important, and realizing that they are, you're helping them do their jobs as well, because it's a big team effort really, and I personally really like being able to help coordinate that. I think that's really important, and you learn what everyone's needs are as well. You do in some ways, I suppose, become a bit of a caretaker, so you know that the dancers are, well, they need it to be warm on stage, and they need it to be a sprung floor, and the spotlight can't be too bright when somebody's doing their fouettes, things like that. You learn everyone's needs, or the orchestra, even just making sure that their stand lights are turned on. And I enjoy that. I really do enjoy that, and I enjoy being as a stage manager, I think it's so important to be a calm presence. If you're good at your job, people already know that you can do the organization and the scheduling and the technical aspect of that. But I think to be a calm and measured presence on stage is really important, and I always really try very hard to do that, but also to not take anything too seriously. Things can get ridiculous, especially some of the requests you get from people about what they need in the moment, and you're like, oh no.
That would be a hard no. We'll come back to that because I'd love to hear what some of those. That's all right, no names, but that's part of the fun stuff. But you also travel with the company too.
Yeah, which is such a pleasure. It's one of the really great things about the job, is getting to go to all these amazing places we've been, and take that to new audiences, and also experience that with the company, because we do everything together really, and yeah, that's really exciting. And I really enjoy meeting the locals at these places, or the local crew, because you learn from them as well, and their ways of doing things. You know, for example, when we came to Chicago, obviously the unions are such a big thing on stage in the States, which isn't, we don't have that as much here, or at least not in the same way.
You can't move a stool in the United States. I mean, literally, you cannot touch anything, because that's a union job and they don't want it taken away from them, but also because they're worried if you do it wrong, then that's on them, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you can't pick up a chair and move it 3 inches.
Yeah, which is understandable, you know, like you say, it's somebody's job, but also it is a little bit mad. It's like, well, I know that still has to be moved and I'm standing literally next to it, but you know, you've got to call someone in to come and move it. And you know, it's learning to appreciate the quirks and why it is that, you know, different countries do things differently, because there is always a reason, and you've got to come in and be aware of that, I suppose. And some of the conversations you get to have with people about other shows that they've had in, or other people they've met, or often you have people in common that they've met along the way, which, you know, it's such a small community, and it's a really special thing to get to do. I feel really lucky.
Laura, so we've already kind of talked a little bit about kind of what your day-to-day looks like, but you obviously need to collaborate with a lot of different people. So can you talk a little bit about kind of what does your day-to-day look like? I'm imagining that no day looks the same, but but who do you kind of collaborate with and talk to, and what are the things that you need to make sure get done every day?
Each day, the differences depend on what activity is happening in the building. Sometimes it can be very basic, just rehearsals, everything's ticking over. Sometimes we'll have a film crew, or big hire, or there'll be 30 children. It can be very, very different. And so I guess a bit like Fiona was saying, I tend to work with all departments because everyone has something going on. I think one of the kind of key things because of that is kind of communication, just being able to, making sure those comms are happening between, all of the different departments, so people know stuff. That's something I always kind of focus on. And also, I think problem solving was constantly, however we plan the day to go, you never know what's going to happen, and, might have to jump in. And I guess in my role, it's sort of often the buck stops, and if something goes wrong, I sort of have to step in. So yeah, it can be very different every day.
This is so
That's
wonderful.
why I like it.
This is so wonderful. I mean, it sounds like you should have planned D-Day, right? We wouldn't have lost that. Do you two wander around the building with like go bags, like things you always have, like Band-Aids and Swiss Army knives and duct tape and glue guns and stuff like that?
I have stashes around the building.
Yes. Yeah. I have a great big tape collection. I love a fluorescent colored tape.
Let's talk a little bit about what it's like working at English National Ballet. I mean, first of all, I've met some women stage managers, but Laura in particular, I think your job is usually a dude's, right?
Sure, yes. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about English National Ballet, their work, the atmosphere, etc.
So yes, you're completely right. My role is often a man. So certainly when I was younger, it was a big change to kind of push myself up there, you know, as a woman in that role. It's a fantastic building to work in, you know, particularly for me as the building operations manager. Our building is purpose built, which is relatively unusual. So, you know, it's got really, really great 7 rehearsal studios. There's a big production studio, which has a full fly tower. We use that to tech shows, but also to hire that out to other West End shows or other creative companies, which is, you know, it's kind of a unique space in London. There's loads of gym space, medical suites, hydro pool. It's just a fantastic building to manage because it works, because it was purpose built. That I think is really, really great. And also having come to ENB from quite a large company, the National Theatre, it's been really nice to work at a kind of more medium-sized space because, yeah, you kind of, there's a much better kind of company feel. I think you kind of get to know everybody, which is really, really nice.
I think that's something quite unique as well to maybe not just ENB, but to ballet in general, because there is a permanent company of dancers.
Yeah.
And you know, permanent technical staff. You get to know everybody, and I know it's a really cliche thing to say, but it really is a family because you're there for, you know, some of the dancers have been there for years. They went to the English National Ballet School before they joined the company. And, you know, you mentioned Tamara, she even came back to ENB, you know, to become the artistic director after having danced there many years previous. So people come back, and I think that's a really special thing, that people feel so passionately about the company and about the work that they do, and yeah, I think that's so special.
Fiona, I noticed, by the way, that you spent time in the United States when you were growing up. It says, talk about that a little bit.
I lived there for about 5 years, so I went to high school, really, in Wisconsin, and my family are still out there.
Right there.
Yeah, right there. So yeah, my parents and my brother are still there, and it's definitely affected how I see the world, if nothing else. You know, it's a real privilege to have been able to experience a different culture and, you know, make friends elsewhere. And I think, you know, that almost makes me uniquely qualified for somewhere like English National Ballet, because, you know, the majority of our dancers are from all over the world and are away from home and are away from their families, and I can relate to that. I can really relate to that. Yeah, and I think also it's nice to be able to have conversations with like yourself. Like, I do understand the union thing a little bit, and, you know, I understand that stage management works differently in America than it does here.
And it's not New York City. You were in the middle of the United States, right? I mean, very purple state, red, blue. This is smack in the middle of the Midwest where the two of us are right now, which is different, right?
Yeah. I love Madison. I still definitely consider it home. I've got lots of friends there still, and yeah, I love it. What a unique opportunity to have had. And, you know, it is, you do get to see sort of the real America, I suppose. You know, you hear other people who have come over and, I don't know, moved to a villa in Florida or something.
Oh, yeah.
That's, you know, that's great. You can get some sunshine and lie by the pool, but I just don't think that's,
no.
You don't get the right.
America's, Lord, did your family think you were absolutely mad, or did they 100% support you working for free and quitting? And I mean, you've obviously made a massive, spectacular success out of it. And also, did your mom or your dad, are they theater people or?
Yeah. So my mum's a big theatre person in particular, and yeah, you know, would always take me to you know, come up to see shows in the West End or off West End as I was growing up. And so, although yes, she was definitely very hesitant when I dropped out, age 20, and was like, this is what I'm doing. She let me do it, which is, you know, great parenting. And yeah, even though I wasn't earning any money, so it doesn't look great on paper, she still supported me. And yeah, of course, you know, as I started to you know, get more and more roles, she's thrilled. So it's been nice.
I think that's absolutely wonderful. Although, I mean, I must say, our mantras don't work for free, but I do think that given what, given your career path, et cetera, you kind of had to. And
Yeah.
also it's almost, it almost strikes me as reminiscent of the medieval guild system, right? Where you learn a craft, right? And you have to kind of work your way up. It's almost like an apprenticeship, right? And you want to grab as much work as you can.
I definitely was very hesitant about working for free, and I made sure I only did it for a finite period, but there was definitely a sort of a vicious circle where if you don't have a degree, you can't get work. And if you don't have any experience, you can't get work. So you sort of have to get that experience somehow. So that's, why I did it. And it did work out. But, I think there's definitely a cautiousness people need to have with, some internships can be, very punishing. So I didn't do that. I just, worked with various companies. So got the experience without, while still being able to do paid work as well.
So the way we've got the questions organized, I think, is backwards. It's what's the best piece of advice you've received and how have you applied this to your life? And then have you ever experienced a disaster or when things went horribly wrong? I think it would be fun to flip it, talk about the disaster, and then we can go to the advice or we can go to what you learned. So Fiona, it's on you now, my dear.
Oh my gosh, well, I have so many stories I could tell. It's live theatre, there's always something that goes wrong. But my favorite story, which will forever, ever stick with me, was actually my first week on the job at ENB. Yeah. First week on the job at Sadler's Wells doing Akron Khan's Giselle. So I'd really been thrown in the deep end there. And we got to the Saturday matinee. So I'd only done a handful of shows and I still didn't really know anyone yet. Just very much the new person, just trying to get through the week. And about 10 minutes in, Albrecht blew out his knee. Yeah, and so you can't really do Giselle without Albrecht. So I had to call a show stop. I had to bring in the curtain and obviously I immediately...
Oh my God. I mean, that's not a little thing, right? That's you saying, and now we're done?
That's we need to stop for now and assess what to do next. So obviously my first thing is always going to check how the dancer's doing and making sure that they're safe and comfortable and are getting the help that they need. So, we got our physio on the scene as quickly as possible to take care of that. And once I knew that he was being looked after, it's then figuring out, right, well, now what? Can we go on? Because we've got a full auditorium. That can't be it. And by some miracle, we had another Albrecht upstairs in the studio rehearsing. So he was already warm and ready to go, and we got him down, and we restarted in 6 minutes. So yeah, I feel like
well done, you.
Never gonna top that, really.
That's incredible.
Yeah, amazing. But also possibly the most nerve-wracking thing to ever happen on your first week on a job. And well, anyway, it's a nerve-wracking thing to happen anyway. Show stops happen, but not generally quite so dramatically.
So mine would be a couple of months after we'd moved into this new building. Something went wrong with our water tank, which sits at the top of the building, and it overflowed continuously all the way through. So water pouring through 5 floors of the building. So through various little studios, through the music space, through this big boardroom and into the foyer, onto our cafe, just water cascading. And I was alerted to it. We didn't initially, it was reported that water was dripping through the ceiling, and we didn't initially realize how serious, how big it was. So yeah, we had to investigate, stop it. There was this amazing sort of scenario where everyone who was in the building suddenly, stepped in. We had the costume team mopping away. We had some of the stage managers kind of with buckets. All the staff were just like getting stuck in, and our marketing team was pushing the grand piano out the way so it wasn't going to get damaged. It was something that we didn't expect, but everyone was amazing in stepping in. And there was limited damage, you know, considering what there could be. Amazingly, it happened at 10 o'clock on a sort of Monday morning. It could have happened in the middle of the night. You know, we were very lucky. And I was exceedingly impressed with how everyone responded. So yeah, it was a bit of a shock, but.
All right, so back to you, Laura, best piece of advice. And also, do you actually follow the best piece of advice I've been given?
So the best piece of advice I've ever been given was when I was working on pop-up bars, kind of earlier in my career. One of the production managers told me to never say I assume. So when, you know, I'm working on projects, and as you say, I've got loads of post-it notes and all these different things, all these different juggling balls in the air. If I ever find myself saying, oh, I assume that's been done, or oh, I assume that person's done that, stop and check that it has been, because it's very, very easy to say that I assume that that's sorted, and it isn't necessarily the case. So that I do apply most days. So yeah, good advice.
Mine was said to me by, I suppose, a mentor, another stage manager, who said this to me when I was a bit younger and questioning my abilities, I suppose. I was told, play to your strengths and never apologize for what your strengths are. And I mean, I try and do that all the time. I'd say my biggest strength is compassion, and I care a lot about what I do. But I think sometimes it's expected of a manager to perhaps be a little bit more detached or removed from what's actually going on. But no, yeah, trying to follow that advice is really helped me succeed, I think.
What do you feel is the importance of women being in sort of leadership or management positions in the arts, and what advice might you give to someone who's interested in maybe one of your roles?
I think with women that are already in those management roles, it's so important to be visible. And you know, that's why I'm really thrilled to be able to have this conversation with you both, because I don't think there is enough visibility of people, especially in roles backstage. And I think that's really important. And then you've got to just lead by example. So, you know, you've got to be confident in your own skills and have the resilience to keep going. And, you know, when you can, you just got to help others, help them up, help them get to where you are, and build them up so that you know, one day we won't be having this conversation, because it'll just be the norm that.
Wouldn't that be fabulous?
People can rely on their skill set and not, you know, who they are.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I was actually telling Fiona before we had this interview about the other day, where somebody came in and sort of demanded to speak to the manager, and was very, very surprised when I turned up. So there's definitely still an assumption that it's quite a male industry, and I think, well, certainly my kind of part of it, and I definitely think one thing that will really help kind of in the future, you know, more women taking kind of more senior roles within the kind of building operations and kind of more practical side of things, is by having women having the confidence to do those roles and not be put off when it might initially seem like a bit of a lads club. So yeah, as Fiona says, yeah, so you can kind of be a kind of bit of an inspiration, I suppose. Yeah.
Are there any questions or anything you two don't know about each other that you'd like to ask? We don't have to even put this in, but
well, I learned very, very recently that Laura is taking up cycling.
Oh, yeah.
Cycling. Mm-hmm. See, and you had a race, is that right? How was that?
Yeah, I bought my first bike as an adult when lockdown began, because I realised I would have to cycle around London to get anywhere. And yes, a year later, I'm doing a 100-kilometre race. So it's wasn't expecting that when I got it to do little tricks.
That is so awesome. Do you train in London? Because having spent some time in London, I see a ton of people commuting in and out, but it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, it's like a roller derby in the US.
So the good thing is, actually lockdown, and you know, a lot more people having to cycle in London. They've really improved cycle paths and all that sort of stuff. But we'll often start off in London, do sort of a loop around Essex and come back. So yeah, it wasn't a new hobby I wasn't expecting to have, but that's one good thing that came out of lockdown.
Fiona, Any new passions, anything you're doing? Gardening, cycling, anything else?
Well, I've revisited an old passion and I bought a piano at the beginning of lockdown. So I've been getting back into that, which is really fun.
How do you feel the pandemic has maybe affected your work? And, is there anything that you would want to kind of keep moving into this new world where things are opening up and the company's obviously performing again?
Well, for me, I'm not saying it's been nice. It's obviously been a very hard 16 months or so. But normally our schedule is so jam-packed and we're on tour and we're rehearsing and it's go, go, go. So it's been quite nice to have some time to do other things that are always on my to-do list, but I never take care of. So, for example, my deputy stage manager and I have been working on our archive and making sure that that is up to scratch. We cleaned out our entire prop store and have started cataloguing that. So yeah, it's been nice to do basically tick some other stuff off the to-do list that always gets shoved to the bottom. So it would be nice to, I suppose, maintain that going forwards and not get so lost in our crazy schedule.
And I guess for me, we've had all these different sorts of controls, etc. We've had procedures we had to put in place with COVID, but one of the ones I'd like to keep, not to make it all about cycling, but we did in the foyer of our building, we've got two sort of big ballet bars that we've made into sort of bike racks for our staff and dancers. So it's been really nice to see a lot more of that. So we're definitely going to keep that in some form.
I've been really lucky at ENB because Laura spoke earlier about the production studio, and that's allowed us to do quite a lot of filming in-house and rehearsing on a slightly bigger scale in-house. And that's, well, I mean, it obviously is exciting for, our marketing departments that's on site for them to use and for the dancers. But for me, it's been great to get to work with some film crews. And expands my skills in theatre sort of into that, and I'm thrilled to be back to live performance. That will always be the bread and butter, and the reason that we're doing this. But I do like that film has become a bit more of a thing because it just makes it so accessible for everyone, doesn't it? My mum can watch what I've been doing all the way in Wisconsin and still feel a part of it. So I think I do hope that continues in some way.
I guess to kind of wrap us up here, can you tell us about any exciting projects that are coming up for both of you, whether that's personal, professional, or anything upcoming for the ballet?
I guess from my side, I'm just extremely excited to be starting to invite our kind of colleagues back into the building soon. Following that, starting to invite the public back in. It's been lovely having all the dancers and Fiona's crew, etc. But it'd be really nice to have more life in the building. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. And in my personal life, I'm about to start training for my second half marathon, which I may come to regret.
That's amazing.
That is. So
there you go.
You're missing the third leg. Now we got to get you swimming and you'll have it all.
That I'm very, very terrible at.
Professionally, I'm excited for our new season. And, as the year goes on, I hope restrictions continue to lift. And eventually, in September, we're meant to be doing Akram Khan's new work, Creature, on stage at Sadler's, which, we've been working on that for about a year and a half now, which is mad. So I'm so excited to finally get to put that in a theatre and have an audience see it. That's going to be thrilling. And then, I suppose we're doing two new works, aren't we? We're also doing Ramonda, which Tamara is choreographing. And so that's, lots of exciting new work coming up for us, which feels really special to get to do that, because of course ballet, it's a lot of the time it's just the rep, you bring out the Swan Lakes, we do Nutcracker every Christmas, so it's really exciting to at the end of this year do some new work.
Is she in rehearsals yet for Raimonda, or is she working with dancers, or where's the process at?
So yeah, there's been a chunk of it that she's worked on already. And then when we come back from the summer, it'll be the whole company back in doing a lot of the core, the work with the corps de ballet. The principals have done a lot of work already. We had a donor event the other week, and I got to see them do some of the excerpts from Act 3, which is really exciting. You know, that's the most I've seen of it so far. So yeah, really exciting to, yeah, something new.
And are you staying put for a bit, Laura? Are you in your new headquarters and no more, are you still learning the ins and outs of the buildings, or do you feel like you all are sort of settled and at home?
So I feel like, as we begin to open up over the next couple of months, there's going to be a lot more learning. So yeah, as we start to have hires coming back in and events, yeah, it's going to be a good 6 months of kind of new things, but that's what keeps it interesting. So
well, I think we can really leave it there. I mean, we're so thrilled that E&B will be back in the theater and performing for live audiences, and can't wait to see what happens in the fall. And thank you so much, Fiona and Laura. We appreciate your time so much, and thanks for sharing your gifts with us.
It's a pleasure.
It's been nice to chat.
Thank you.